active fires in Ontario. Of those, 30 are not under control, 30 are being held. 30 are not under control, 7 are being held, 7 are under control, and 115 are being observed. In the past 2 weeks, we've also seen over 80 fires been extinguished by our incredible fire rangers and teams. And the number of not under control fires has gone down from the 53 reported on July 22nd. 156 Ontario fire crews are on the ground, supported by over 140 aircraft, including 85 suppression helicopters and water bombers across the province of Ontario. Recent rainy, cool weather has helped our crews get to work on suppression. There has been minimal growth on some of the more challenging fires in the northwest, like the largest fire that we've seen, which is Thunder Bay 36. The crews have made progress in constructing fire guards and doing values protection on this fire, like setting up sprinkler systems. In the Atikokan cluster near Quetico Park, we're making good progress in containing those fires as well. While this is still a very active situation, we are seeing things move in a more reassuring direction. Over the past week, additional resources have also arrived in Ontario. Personnel and aircraft from Alberta, Newfoundland, New Brunswick, and the Yukon, as well as the federal government, have been here for the last several weeks doing amazing work. And earlier this week, crews from Prince Edward Island, as well as over 100 firefighters from Mexico, arrived in the Northwest. These firefighters from Mexico are highly trained and have worked alongside our crews in Ontario before. In fact, Ontario has also sent crews to Mexico in the past, and we will be happy to do so again, should the need arise. As Premier Ford has said, we will not hesitate to dedicate any and all necessary resources to respond to these fires. We've invested more than $1.5 billion since 2018 in our frontline operations. We will not put a price on the safety of the people of Ontario. And looking forward to the long weekend, I want to remind everyone that evacuation and implementation orders continue to be in effect. These are in place to allow for crews and aircraft to continue doing their jobs in managing these fires. So please, before heading out to camp or the lake, check ontario.ca/fire updates for the most up-to-date information. Now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Minister Dunlop, to provide an update from the Ministry of Emergency Preparedness and Response. Thank you very much. Minister.
Thank you, Minister Harris. I will now provide an update on the Ministry of Emergency Preparedness and Response's support being provided to communities affected by the wildland fires and ongoing evacuation efforts. Our government remains committed to working alongside municipalities and First Nations communities, ensuring they have the resources and support they need during this challenging time. The Provincial Emergency Operations Centre remains fully activated, with dedicated staff working tirelessly to support impacted communities and coordinate provincial assistance. As of July 30th, 14 communities have been evacuated, with 5 communities that have returned home and 1 community that is in the process of returning home. Approximately 2,014 people remain evacuated to host communities across the province. I want to thank those host communities for raising their hand and welcoming evacuees to ensure they have the essentials that they need. As I've said before, our government is steadfast in its commitment to supporting affected communities for as long as assistance is needed. Since the first request for assistance received on July 14th, the Ministry has held over 100 coordination calls with First Nation chiefs, leaders and communities, emergency management partners, municipalities, and the federal government. I, alongside Premier Ford and Minister Harris, have visited Thunder Bay to see firsthand the incredible work being done by all fire crews, pilots, emergency responders, Ontario Corps volunteers, and reception centre volunteers. We have activated significant provincial resources to respond to this situation. To date, we have proactively stood up a reception centre in Thunder Bay to ensure that these resources are in place should they be required. We've delivered 312 air purifiers, 5 air scrubbers, and 84 replacement filters to help 5 First Nations communities remain in their communities. We've deployed Ontario Corps partners, including Feed Ontario and Ontario Federation of Indigenous Friendship Centres, to transport and distribute food. Global Medic to deliver critical supplies to the reception centres, and Ontario 211 to respond to non-emergency inquiries related to the wildland fires. we continue to coordinate our response with and on behalf of the federal government. On July 15th, Ontario formally submitted a proactive request for assistance to the Government of Canada to ensure specialized resources were available for rapid mobilization to support evacuation operations should they become necessary. In short, our government is mobilizing every available tool and resource to support communities during this difficult time. Evacuations, especially in these circumstances, are nothing short of traumatic. Our team is doing all we can to support all those who have been evacuated. I extend my deepest sympathies to all those who have lost their homes and have been displaced from their communities. As has been mentioned several times, this wildland fire season is truly unprecedented, but it reflects the escalation of natural disasters and emergencies we are seeing worldwide. The wildland fires in BC, Spain, France, and the United States are a stark reminder of why emergency preparedness is so important. Our government has made critical investments to bolster community resilience and strengthen the province's response capacity. Through the Community Emergency Preparedness Grant, we have provided funding to 342 communities to purchase the critical supplies and equipment they need to address emergencies in their communities. We launched Ontario Corps, a first-of-its-kind initiative in Ontario to build stronger communities by tapping into the goodwill and civic pride of individual Ontarians, businesses, and associations to support each other. And planning work is underway for the new Emergency Preparedness and Response Headquarters, which, once built, will help us to continue coordinating and deploying provincial resources effectively and efficiently, even as emergency incident volumes continue to increase. I want to thank all of our emergency management partners, including First Nation chiefs and community leadership, municipalities, the federal government, and Ontario Corps partners and volunteers for their ongoing cooperation and support. Thank you, merci, miigwech, and I'll now hand it over to Minister Rickford.
Well, thank you for that, Minister Dunlop, and good morning, everybody. I'm out in northwestern Ontario in Kenora. I like to stay situated in the region. It's actually and obviously been very busy times, and I'd like to congratulate Minister Harris and Minister Dunlop for their extraordinary leadership as lead ministries. I know that they've been working around the clock, as has my ministry and team. Also a shout out to some of the folks that have been part of this Herculean effort that often don't get noticed. They're community members, nurses in those isolated, particularly and remote First Nations communities who compile lists, mobilize the most vulnerable and young people for various stages of evacuation. As somebody who has lived and worked as a nurse and been involved in many evacuations, the details are important to ensure the safety of community members as they are evacuated. Those folks get mobilized to places where community members are evacuated to. These are towns and cities across our great province who've all chipped in and provide various kinds of supports. For the purposes of my ministry, we provide a supportive role, a particularly nuanced role to provide mental health supports, other details, constant communication with First Nation leaderships from various communities, but also from First Nations organizations, the Anishinaabe Nation, for example, Chiefs of Ontario, coordinating and communicating effectively to understand how we can best support communities in pre-evacuation, evacuation, obviously, when they're displaced from their community, and then, of course, repatriation. The safety of community members, wherever they are in any one of these phases, is the top priority of our enterprise-wide approach that we're taking. And as a ministry who supports even working with directly with community members to ensure, for example, when a community is partially or wholly evacuated, care for animals that are left in those communities are the kinds of details, for example, that we support. I know that being here in northwestern Ontario, in the middle of another heat wave, it takes one strike of lightning to change our fortunes. and having been in constant contact with a number of chiefs in person, on video, obviously over text and phone, when and where we can meet them, we're going to continue to provide the kind of detailed and nuanced support for those communities wherever they may be in the process, and ensure that they live as comfortably and things go as smoothly as possible. As Minister Dunlop has said, this is a significant disruption in the lives of community members and communities who host community members. I know work tirelessly to ensure that they have the best available services and programs for them, and the province plays a central role in ensuring that those services and programs, particularly around health, particularly around supporting children activities and the likes, while this occurs. So I want to thank the ministers, thank community leaders, municipalities, and First Nations for their work, and be assured that the provincial government stands at the ready and continues to work around the clock, as I and my colleagues have, under the clear direction of Premier Ford, to spare no expense, but make sure, most importantly, the safety and the continuity of the lives of people who are impacted by this are paramount, front row and center. Thank you for this, and we're happy to take any questions or comments.
We will now take questions from the media. If you can please come up to the mic and state your name and outlet. And just a reminder, the format is one question and one follow-up. First question.
Mr. Harris, the First Nations leaders that are affected by those fires are asking your government to launch a public inquiry. What is stopping your government from launching a public inquiry?
Yeah, well, after every fire season, we do quite a deep dive into I guess the good things that have happened, maybe some of the challenges that we had, things we can work on, things we can replicate for the following year. But I want to make it very clear, we're very focused right now on making sure that people and property are saved. So we're focusing our efforts at this point in time on suppression, on values protection, and we're going to continue to do that for the time being.
That's not the question though, right? It's what's stopping your government from a public inquiry. I mean, an after-action review and a public inquiry can exist at the same time. You say you will spare no expense, so what's stopping your government from launching a public inquiry?
So like I said, right now we're very focused on direct suppression efforts and making sure that people and property are safe here in the province. Once we get through the fire season, just like we do after every fire season, we go through what's happened well, what hasn't worked the best with our teams, and we look to change those things for the following season.
Will you let that review be public and transparent?
I'm not sure how the review will all work out. We do a very deep dive internally, and I think there'll be lots of recommendations that will come forward, and at the time, we'll see what makes sense to talk about.
So, Minister, why wouldn't?
And I would just add to that, Minister Harris, that we are actively doing discussions with First Nations leaders at various levels to ensure that in real time, as the minister says, that we are nimble, and that as circumstances change for other communities, we can continue to do better. Some First Nations leaders have chosen to have those meetings with us in private, choosing not, of course, to take this to the media, but rather focus on the safety of their community members, engage in best practices, whether it's readiness, suppression, or the processes within evacuation and repatriation. And to that extent, I can attest to the fact that all of us as ministers have taken those conversations and those meetings. And as the minister said, we always debrief and try to understand how governments can do better. But in the meantime, we're focused on the top priorities, and that is the active wildland fires, the threat of those, the environment, obviously heat waves in different parts of Northern Ontario, and the real activities associated with ensuring the safety of people across Northern Ontario and the province writ large, as we've seen smoke impact communities farther to the south.
Minister, why wouldn't you make the after-action report?
Well, like I said, there's a lot of operational details that we'll have to go through. We'll have to see what it looks like. I mean, the systems are currently working. We have no loss of life. We've been able to evacuate people that have needed to be evacuated. So I do understand that obviously there's quite a bit of frustration. I think any time that you are displaced from a community, it's going to change your perspective on things. But we are doing everything that we can to make sure that we are keeping people and property safe. We're very focused on that right now. After action reports will happen, and then we'll look to see where we go from that point forward.
Can I ask a question to Mr. Dunlop?
Sure.
Possible? Mr. Dunlop, last week you were on As It Happens and you were asked questions about poor communication with First Nations. One of your staffers jumped on the interview and cut it short and you never answered those questions. You continue to paint a rosy picture of response. Why do you think there's such a gap when it comes to preparation and response between what your governments say and what people who are actually living through this are saying?
Well, as you've heard from myself, from Minister Rickford, from Minister Harris, we have been meeting with First Nation leadership. I gave an example last week, and in the meantime, I have spoke with several other leaders of communities who have been evacuated and taken the feedback on what we can be doing better if this were to ever to happen, or to other communities, may it happen in the future. But there has been, as we've all said, we have been in constant coordination. The Provincial Emergency Operations Center, as I said earlier, has had over 100 coordination calls since July 14th. So this is working directly with First Nation leadership, as well as other ministries who may be involved, the Indigenous Services Canada. So there is a lot of coordination going on, a lot of communication, and I think we're very proud of the work that we're doing. Obviously, we want to continue reaching out to First Nation leadership to ensure that we are providing the best services possible, that to communities who are being evacuated, that the best situation possible is happening. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is ensuring life-saving measures to have communities evacuated. But we've had 14 communities evacuated. In the meantime, we've had 5 communities return home. So it's good to see with the work that's being done with natural resources, with the fires on the ground, the weather conditions cooperating, the communities are able to return home.
Minister,
What can you do better? You said the First Nation chiefs have told you you could do better. What is that?
I spoke with one chief yesterday, and he had returned home and was just giving me some examples of the evacuation. They were in Niagara Falls, just some ideas on how community members could actually participate in on-the-ground work at the evacuation area. So we talked about what that might look like with training of community members, whether in security measures or emergency management measures. You know, what he said to me is, we have the manpower, and I said, well, we have the education and the skills to help with that too. So, I mean, that's just one takeaway, but we want to ensure that when community members are evacuated, that they are, you know, it's a stressful situation for everyone. We want to ensure that they are as comfortable as possible in the area that they're in and have those wraparound supports available.
We've talked to a lot of those First Nations who are not very comfortable with where they are, especially the ones who've been displaced outside of Toronto. They tell us they're struggling with a wide variety of issues. What can you do better for the people who are displaced, especially if Thunder Bay is full, which it is right now? Is there a way you can do things better next time?
Well, I think it's the continuing communication and the coordination calls that we have. So when communities are having their calls with the Provincial Emergency Operations Center, we're hearing directly from those community members, from the leadership, what it is, any special supports or resources they need. We also have field officers on the ground in those locations helping the communities. The wraparound supports that are available, I've mentioned before, outside of just looking at hotel space, is what is the healthcare capacity of the region that we're looking at having host cities. The wraparound services, as Minister Rickford mentioned, you know, the supports for children and families that are on the ground in those communities. So just continuing to listen to leadership, but also it is a you know, it's all levels of government working together, the federal government, Indigenous Services Canada, some of the vendors that help at the centers that are located. So working together, hearing the, you know, taking the feedback and putting that into to work for future times.
And Minister Dunlop, if I could just add, sorry, I've got a bit of an echo here. Look, this is a dynamic, fluid scenario. It's not easy to predict how community members will respond to this kind of displacement. It's a significant event, and constant communication with those chiefs. In one instance, a chief had a number of his community members in a couple of different communities, which included Toronto. Neither the leadership or the governments could predict how they would respond and what kind of services and how quickly they could be mobilized could and would be prioritized. And I think the good news is that through that communication, particularly through the Provincial Emergency Operations Center, the readiness of Minister Dunlop and I know Minister Harris leading an entirely different part of this through his ministry, but for our purposes, constantly pivoting and making sure that the kinds of supports that are there or arranged to be there for community members that are displaced, and as well for their reflections in real time as to who or what is left in their community and how that can be taken care of. So on the question of, or the use of the word better, I don't think this is it's fair to assess that this is good or bad and use those kinds of descriptors. It's a continually evolving situation, and through constant communication and some debriefing with chiefs who are now repatriating or have repatriated, some quick updates on how their experience was in a given community, a host community, who will continue to be a host community based on their capacity, and how things can go better for any other community members from other communities that may find themselves there.
Apparently that staffer that jumped in during this as it happens is no longer with your team. I'm wondering if you think it could have you react better to that, just finish the interview perhaps and avoid all that?
Well, it was an unfortunate situation that happened, that I was cut off by a staff member. I think I've been very clear. I've been at the podium every opportunity, taken all media interviews, and will continue to be very transparent and focused on what we're doing with my ministry.
Why couldn't you have finished the interview? Were you cut off the line?
It was a decision that was made by a staff member. Like I said, it was
you're the
unfortunate. It was cut off, but I'm not here to discuss HR matters today, but it is very unfortunate what happened.
So it was a decision of the staffer.
Yes, it was.
Minister Harris, so in another press conference 2 weeks ago, you were talking about how your government was working with First Nations communities to implement self-evacuation plans. But we heard these First Nations criticize your government for letting them self-evacuate. So can you walk us through the logic? Why Ontario plans for certain communities to evacuate by themselves?
Yeah, it's obviously, as you've heard from Minister Rickford, everybody's situation is very different. Some have road access, some are only boat access, some are only plane access. So depending on what situation arises, how quickly it arises, where we have assets in the region, it can obviously make things very different in every situation. I think one of the things that we've heard from First Nations leadership and other municipal leaders through this process is that early warning is obviously something that is extremely important, because they're then able to make plans as to what they need to do. If they're not in a position to be able to self-evacuate and they do need assistance from the ministry and or the federal government, and we want to thank our federal partners for being able to help evacuate several communities and also with some search and rescue efforts that we've needed to do. But it's extremely important that we work towards, and this is, I think, one of those things that if we're talking about what we can not necessarily do better, but do differently, is look at ways that we can try and get out there on the landscape and warn communities as quickly as possible. So having emergency management plans in place is going to be extremely important going forward. Looking at ways that we can work with communities to set up values protection ahead of time so that we're not doing it sort of last minute as fires approach and people are trying to evacuate out of the community. So each community is a little bit different. We're continually working with them to try and develop what plans make the most sense, and we'll keep doing that as we move forward.
Minister, NAN has proposed an emergency management protocol, which would cover at least 49 fairly remote First Nations in Northwestern Ontario. Are you guys going to sign on to that protocol?
Yeah, we'll have to have a look and see what the recommendations look like. There's a lot of other things obviously at play right now. Northern airports is a huge piece of what this is going to look like. We need to be able to have some larger scale runways so we can get larger planes in to evacuate more people should it happen. Our ministry, also in partnership with the Ministry of Forestry, Minister Kevin Holland's Ministry of Forestry, Also looking at ways that we can improve our forest access road plans and different things that we can do to help have those second or third egresses from community so that they don't just have to rely on air transportation. So I think there's a lot of things we're going to be looking at as we move forward. You've heard the Premier say we'll spare no expense. So we want to make sure that we're being proactive, doing the smart things, the right things that are going to help communities in the long run.
Minister, I know you've said previously that there were enough resources in place. You were ready for this fire season, but I'm wondering what you would say to Ontarians who hear you say today, we are calling in aid from all of these other jurisdictions, 100 firefighters from Mexico, and say, well, gee, it sure doesn't sound like they were ready.
Well, this has been an unprecedented season so far. We've had a fire season in the last 2 weeks like we've never seen before. Thankfully, things are calming down now. They're getting back to normal, and we're able to manage the situation a lot better. But I would point out that there are jurisdictions not only across Canada, but the U.S. and around the world that are also facing similar situations. We are very well resourced. I would say that we move people and equipment around across Canada almost every year. Sometimes we're sending folks out from Ontario to other jurisdictions as well. So I think our team does an incredible job. Kudos to them for the work that they've done over the last few weeks in a very, very difficult, unprecedented situation.
So you feel like this is a one-off then?
I hope so. I mean, you know, you can't predict what things are going to look like as you move forward, but obviously we've seen the Northwest be a little bit drier over the last couple of years. We've seen temperatures increase. Minister Rickford and I have talked many times about kind of what things are looking like, how the weather is, texting back and forth, having those discussions. And you heard him today say, you know, we've got another bit of a heat wave coming in the Northwest. So again, conversely, in the Northeast, we've seen lots of snow. Over the last few years, we've seen lots of rain. They're going to get some more rain over the next few days as well. So it's, you know, you kind of look at the weather modeling, you can kind of predict what's going to happen, but at the end of the day, you just try and be as ready as you can and respond to the situations as they arise.
And I would just add, Minister Harris, that on the comment or what underpins the question around other jurisdictions helping. Look, this is a tested, true tradition of provinces and countries sharing its resources for, wait for it, wildfires, right? They are wild. They change. I'm sitting here in Kenora right now. We don't have any smoke, but by this afternoon, a southeast wind could easily move into our community on a dime and put us under certain kinds of pressures or effects of smoke. And the people in Toronto have seen that. When it comes to the actual firefighting, obviously Ontario has been there for provinces. The California, I think the comments made by Minister Trump, President Trump were so unfortunate about it, is the fact that Ontario, without any thought or any hesitation at all, mobilized its resources to go to California. There's no level of preparation out there that can put one jurisdiction in a place to completely handle the fires that may evolve in its jurisdiction. That's why we depend on other levels of government, people on the ground, and other jurisdictions to come in and fight those forces. I was the Minister of Natural Resources 4 or 5 years ago, and we had support from Mexico at the time, just as we do now. That is a reflection of our preparedness, the level of preparedness, to call on other jurisdictions for the right support at the right time. For wildfires as they evolve, expand, contract, and the various exercises from suppression to bringing them under control.
But Minister, every new season
Sorry.
is unprecedented.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So we'll get to that one, I hope.
Sure.
Just on this number of crews,
Yeah.
there seems to be a debate going back and forth. But what
The number is 156.
156 now of our own crews.
Correct.
We've got the Mexicans
Yep.
helping us. We have private contracted crews as well on the ground already.
There are some doing some values protection, but from a direct suppression effort, it would be contracted air crews.
The argument made to me was when all these fires started to set off, if we had more crews, we could have gotten to some of those fires earlier and contained them or put them out, and it wouldn't have been quite as bad.
Yeah, so that's, I guess it's, I don't want to say it's a bit of a misnomer to say that if we had more crews, we could just get in, because it's not that simple. So depending on how big those fires are, where they start, how remote they are, how big the smoke plume is, it actually makes it almost impossible for people to get in on the ground. It becomes very dangerous. So there's a lot of direct suppression efforts that will happen from the air before we're able to get folks on the ground. Often we'll have what we call like a helitack team. Usually 4 or 5 people will come in, try and set a little bit of a base camp up to make sure that they're able to then get more supplies in, more people, more pumps, more hoses, but it's not always possible. So I would say that the 156 crews that we have right now are highly trained, highly specialized. They do an incredible job. Listen, we're always looking to hire more people, and we have over the last couple of years, but it's not easy to find people that want to come and fight wildfires. So go ahead, yeah, absolutely. Sure.
You mentioned about hoping this was a one-off. I think every expert has told us it's not a one-off. Climate change means these fires are going to get worse and worse and worse over time. So are you contemplating a higher base level of staff, a higher base budget in the years to come to address it?
So our base budget has doubled since 2018, which is incredible. Previous governments had it pegged around 70 million. We're now upwards of 150. We're buying more planes. We're buying more helicopters. We are looking to hire as many people as we can, quite frankly, but we do have to supplement them with contract crews, just like almost every single province and jurisdiction around North America and, quite frankly, around the world. So, like I said, it takes incredible people to get out there on the landscape and fight wildland fire. Often they are seasonal workers. They're folks who are going to school, going to university, so they're only here for a short period of time during that summer. So yes, absolutely, we're always looking to hire more people. If you're watching this, you want to become a wildland firefighter, please reach out to our office, let us know. We'd be happy to guide you through the process.
This will be the last question.
Aside from the firefighting piece, you talk about last-minute responses to different communities. On that side, on the logistics piece, on the communication, on the evacuation, is it fair to say that your government wasn't prepared?
Well, I don't think I used the term last minute. I think I said that there's been times where fires have been close to communities, and it's been a lot more challenging to be able to get notifications into communities.
So that we're not doing sort of last-minute approach as fires approach as people.
Okay. So last minute maybe isn't the right term. I think we want to try and provide information to people as soon as we can, but there are fires that do start very close to communities that are either reported by community, reported by some of our folks who are in the air, our aircraft that are looking for new fire starts. We always have folks out doing that as well. So I think there's always things that we can do better. And like I said, we're going to go back. We're going to talk to communities. We're constantly talking to communities, as you've heard from Minister Dunlop. And as we move forward, we're doing everything that we can to try and let people know as early as possible. But it is not always possible, and that's why it's very, very important that those communities have emergency preparedness plans in place. If they feel the need to self-evacuate, if there's a fire coming close to their community, please do that. Absolutely. Let us know what you're doing so that we can assist as quickly as we can. So it's extremely important that we keep those lines of communication open as we move forward, and we're going to continue to do that.
And that concludes today's press conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.